Welcome into the CHGO Bears Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. What's going on, Bears fans? What a busy day it has been at Halas Hall. Adam Hogue and Nicholas Moriano with you after Nick rushed home. You had a tough drive home there, buddy, huh?
I did, and apparently I can't see out of my right eye. It's all good, though. We have a bunch of great information to give you guys today. Appreciate you for waiting 15 minutes late. Not usually standard here at CHGO, but I'll make it up to you guys.
Well, it's because
usually we're like 3 minutes late. So.
Wow. Good way to start the show.
That's fine. Hit the like for us. Thanks, everybody.
I know everybody's wondering where Mark Harmon and Greg Braggs are. The reality is that they were both suspended for their nonsense yesterday. It was a 1-game suspension, and they'll be back sometime soon.
It's funny you say that because Mark Harmon is going to surprise you guys. He's checking in right now. Do you want to hear from Mark Harmon?
Not really. I just suspended him, but now he's going to come back.
You got a minute 13 of Mark Harmon on Southwest Airlines.
All right, guys. I completely hate missing the show today, but I know you're going to kill it, and I know you're going to miss me, right? You are going to miss me. Hey, my number one takeaway from the presser today is that DJ Moore must have had the sweetest house in the history of Carolina, because damn, that guy's going to miss his house. But hey, you don't need to stay in Lake Forest. Gurney, go up to go. I don't know, west, north. There's other options. And by the way, yes, that's right. I'm wearing the purple. Go Cats. We're headed to New York. So miss you guys today. Have a great show. And Hogue, I know you love us, and we love you back, buddy. And another thing, Jack Sanborn giving up his jersey number for TJ Edwards. That's why he's the Sand God. Dude doesn't care about a number. 57, 97, 27, 07. Sanborn. Sand God. My guy. And lastly, I got you, Poles. Rome wasn't built in a day. But I just want to remind you, you're Ryan Poles. You can build Rome in a day. Maybe not now, but you could have. And you will. And you are. So crush the draft. Let's go. All right. Bye now.
Go away.
I received each of them in order, just more and more kept coming. And I was like, this is like 20 minutes ago. And I'm like, well, thank God Nick's late because I had time to actually cut that. The audio was a little shoddy, but that's fine.
Wait, so Nick was late and then we were all forced to be punished by Carm.
Yes.
For a minute. My biggest takeaway from that is I'm going to show everybody this little trick. So depending on what kind of phone you have these lenses on here, and all you got to do before you take a photo or video, I guess he was probably doing it from the front, whatever, lens on the front. Nice picture of my kids there. Okay. You just take whatever you're wearing and you do a little wipe. It's just like one wipe, 2 wipes, or you do it to that side of the phone. You don't even have to use what you're like. How about this Goose Island koozie? That's a nice koozie. You could use that, just a little wipe, and then your video will be much clearer. Also, Carm was telling me about how he has this amazing status or whatever, or 1 million points on Southwest. He had like 6 different flights to New York today booked somehow, and he could cancel them all last minute. What, you got the worst seat in the plane at the back? Like, I know they board.
Wondering that.
What group were you in?
Or is there like a middle? Is there a section up front that then has like the stuff behind him? I don't really know.
I don't think so. I think he was at the back of the plane. So
I wonder if there was someone sitting next to him, while he was recording these videos. Like, what is this guy talking about? Ryan Poles can build Rome in a day. Can't do it.
Sanborn, as About Beverages says here, maybe he wanted the Sybil Shepherd effect, a filter. Yeah.
Okay. I always like the dirty phone lens filter. It's a good one. All right.
I'll get out of the way. Let's talk.
Right. Yeah. The whole point of this show today was to get the nonsense out of here. And unfortunately, we just spent 4 minutes with the nonsense. And we're going to move on with plenty of football info. Lots of things and stuff and things were said today by the GM and players as we got introduced to a whole bunch of new players on the Chicago Bears. They made another signing while we were actually there. So there's plenty to get to and talk about. Appreciate everybody being here. I know we've had some questions, back-to-back shows at 3:00. We're not changing the normal time of the show. It's going back to noon tomorrow. We just adjust the time occasionally when it's in the best interest of the content we want to bring you on the show. And today was certainly one of those days. And yesterday was the start of the new league year at 3:00. Mark, I see you with the super chat already, $4.99. Sanborn will always be number 57, especially since I bought his jersey the day he made the final cuts. I will tell you this, depending on where you bought that jersey, I know some places now have like jersey insurance, or I think within a year, if they change numbers or change teams, you can actually get a new one made or sent to you. I don't know all the details on it, but I know that's a thing.
And now it's nostalgic. You have to. I think you just keep it, like Mark. Yeah. I don't know if you go and switch it out or get TJ Edwards now. You have Sanborn 57. That's gonna be worth something.
Yeah, it could be. If he goes on to the Hall of Fame, he could be like, I remember when Sanborn was 57. Daniel Trump, $10. So all the free agents pass physicals and everything. There won't be any take backsies like last year. No, they were all there. It's all been announced. They all went through the physicals. They all talked to the media afterwards. So it's all good from that standpoint, and that's certainly good news because it's something we learned from last year is always a possibility. And sometimes guys just change their mind too in between Monday and when they actually sign the contract. So doesn't look like any of that is going to happen. I do want to mention that Nick has a piece up on allchgo.com from all the takeaways from Ryan Poles. We're going to discuss a lot of that here. But just what was Nick, I'll start with this. Just what was your biggest takeaway from today? I think mine was that DeMarcus Walker is my new favorite player. And he's got a Pernell McPhee vibe with his quotes and willingness just the way he framed things and how energetic he was. I think he's going to be an amazing quote in the locker room. I love it.
No, I completely agree with that. I really liked also how Tremaine Edmunds presented himself today. Really talking about the history of, the linebacker position in Chicago. And there was a common theme between some of these free agents, Walker and Edmonds. Like a reason why they wanted to come to Chicago as well is because of that guy that you have to hit the like button for, Justin Fields. They mentioned him as being, a reason for wanting to be a part of the Bears organization. But yeah, Tremaine Edmunds, the way he presented himself, how he answered questions, it stood out to me. And, obviously he's going to play a big role in the Bears defense, but I'll go with Tremaine Edmunds and what he had to say today.
Yeah, for those asking, DeMarcus Walker was, you probably saw this quote going, and you've seen it on our CHGO Bears account if you're following out on Twitter, but he was asked by Pat Finley, does the quarterback play a role in, where you end up signing? And he goes, excuse my French, abso-fucking-lutely. And then went on to talk about, how much he loves Justin Fields. And that was a common theme today as well. It's obvious that Justin Fields is, certainly not a detriment to any of these guys, which maybe have been the case in the past, especially when it comes to wide receivers. But I think you heard from DJ Moore too about how excited he was to pair with Justin Fields and how they can all kind of work together to elevate each other's game.
And Adam, if you remember way back on Locker Room Cleanout Day, I think that's when Justin Fields said it, where they wanted Justin also to be a part of like the recruiting, right? In terms of what he can add to possibly reaching out to people. And we've talked to a bunch of players around the league and what they think about Justin Fields. Well, now you're seeing that kind of, resonate with these players and ultimately why they're signing with Chicago. It's because of number one, QB1, Justin Fields. So I think that's something that's ultimately different. You usually didn't have that be a factor for free agents wanting to come to Chicago. Like, I want to play with the quarterback here. Well, Justin Fields is an ascending talent, and hopefully this year 3 with guys like DJ Moore can help elevate his game even more. But that is definitely a different aspect that the Bears now have at that position.
let's talk a little bit about what Ryan Poles had to say today. There's a few things that we got to hit on, but one is just sort of, I think, following up on the conversation from yesterday and sort of this anxiety that it seems like Mark Carman has and some other Bears fans. And I get it, that it's like, well, what about the defensive line? Like, where's the help? Where's the 3 technique? Why is the money not going in there? And I'm trying to explain to people that smart teams still use best player available as a strategy, even in free agency. And I thought Ryan Poles had a good explanation on this today. In terms of exactly on fixing the defensive line, he said, quote, "There are going to be some weak spots on our roster, and we can't fix everything, but we are going to stay flexible to do the best we can to get better. You go from a short-term thinking of we have to do everything right now, and you extend that out and do things the right way. Over time, we'll be able to heal up the rest of those positions." He also talked about, Nick, the idea that when you get caught up in your needs, like, you got to think about it like this. Like, you have a budget to spend, right? Okay, so you have a certain amount of cap space, a certain amount of cash, however you want to look at it. And you have a list of players that you're willing to spend, but you're going to have to prioritize those players because, a GM will call an agent and be like, "Hey, we're interested in this, in your client, but we got to take care of some other things first before we can get to this point." So because he's not at the top of the list. So what Ryan Poles was trying to say is, like, if they had gone to the free agency and they said, "All right, well, our 2 biggest needs are 3 technique and right tackle, and we got to make sure we have them, we're making those a priority, and we're putting that money in this cap space towards that right away because those are our biggest needs," you could miss out on the fact that in their minds, Tremaine Edmunds was the best linebacker available. And you don't want to lose out on a great player at a different position because you're so focused on a position in need where the players and the talent just aren't as good. It's something we talked about, and I wrote about it last week. The free agent class as a whole, the amount of talent out there this year was underwhelming when you talk to people at the combine. And so you don't want to get stuck having to spend money on guys that you don't really believe in. And I think that's the approach that Ryan Poles took. And all he's trying to say is, yeah, he's acknowledging defensive line has to get better, but you have to be patient. You have to wait till the right time to strike to fix every one of those positions, or you're going to screw up at other positions at the same time.
Absolutely, Adam. I think with just Ryan Poles, what we've come to learn about him now entering year 2 is that when he has a plan, he does stick to it. That's how he was able to make the trade for the number 1 overall pick down to 9. It was a plan in place there. But going back to how he even started the press conference, what his goals were for his second offseason, he said the goal going into the offseason deal was to improve our roster now, but also stay flexible in the future so we can stay healthy, opportunistic, and continue to get better. And if you're going out spending big money in positions of need and going outside of your plan, then you're not going to have that flexibility in the future, like what he wants to be able to do. Yes, you need to get better now this season. That's what DJ Moore is here for. But you can't overspend for the necessity of doing it because you do have holes on the roster. And it was crazy to think that the Bears are going to fill up everything in one offseason. That wasn't realistic. So, Ryan Poles has a plan. He's sticking to it. There's going to be positions that may not be filled with the premium positions yet, and he knows that. So I think as long as people who are, criticizing or, questioning why these moves haven't been made, Ryan Poles knows that too. So there's a plan in place and he's sticking to it.
I also kind of get a kick out because I've been getting some of these tweets every once in a while that are like, maybe, ripping the Bears for being cheap and not spending money when they have. I'm like, they've spent a shit ton of money in the last 3 days. Like, what are you talking about? Just because you have it doesn't mean you spend all of it. Like, that's actually a terrible way to go about building a roster. You got to think about it this way. You still have a piece of the pie that has to go to your draft class, which right now the Bears have 10 picks, and 4 of them are in the top 64, and those higher picks cost more money. So you have to budget for that. Not that it's a terrible amount of the cap, but you do have to budget for that. You also know that right now they have a budget for players they want to extend this year. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, a lot of times extensions can also help free up space in the short term, but I don't think the Bears want to be in that mode of already taking up future cap space, because you heard it right there in that quote that I just read to you. They want to remain flexible. So, and you want to leave yourself about some money for when a player unexpectedly gets cut by another team and becomes available. So there's just no need to say, oh, well, they have, 40 million left or whatever it is in cap space, spend it today. Especially because we're already past the first wave of free agents.
Mm-hmm.
They're already on to the second wave, and guys that are going to come cheaper, like Andrew Billings was one of the defensive tackles that they signed today, and not for a lot of money. And he's just sort of a depth piece and probably a better fit than Angelo Blackson was as a one technique. So just I think the biggest thing is that P word, patience. Just you got to, as Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham try to do this the right way, you got to remain patient.
You have to. And I know a big topic on yesterday's show was about putting money into what is viewed as not a premium position like Tremaine Edmunds, but they wouldn't pay Roquan Smith. It's just a different story though, right? Because, and especially what Edmonds, how he can fit in this system, and ultimately what you're able to get from the Bears obviously moving on from Roquan. You got Edmonds, you get Edwards, you get that second round draft pick, all for what would almost be as much as just for one player in Roquan Smith. So I've been getting that a lot lately as well. Like, why would they do that when they wouldn't pay Roquan? Well, you have future draft capital, and you also got two young ascending linebackers. So again, Ryan Poles, going back to what I said earlier, he's got a plan in place. Now you have two of the best coverage linebackers in the league on this defense, where the Bears were hurting last season. So all in all, it's, his moves are making sense, and he's keeping his options open for the future.
Yeah, quick quote from Ryan Poles on Tremaine Edmunds that he offered up. Quote, "He's special, he's big, he's long, he fits our scheme." And I actually have some more coming up on Edmunds I want to talk about. That where I'm actually mad at myself about something. So we're going to bring that up in our next segment. I want to move, sticking on what Ryan Poles had to say. I want to talk about the offensive line now. He confirmed something I suggested and wrote in my newsletter this week about the idea of Cody Whitehair moving back to center. He brought that up today on his own, saying that that's a possibility. I think that that's probably a likelihood at this point. I think we forgot that. I don't want to say we forgot, but as Poles said today, the guy has over or near 4,000 snaps at center. I went back and looked at my grades that I keep on these guys. And, remember, Whitehair's had some snapping issues when he was at center, but he actually is graded out better as a center than a guard over the course of his career. So I think it's an interesting combination that I think makes sense. I don't know that it's the only option the Bears are going to have when this is all said and done, but they obviously believe Nate Davis is an upgrade and a fit for the scheme. Now, he said he's okay moving over to the left side. I think honestly what they're going to end up doing, Nick, is letting Tevin and Nate work that out in practice and see who's comfortable. Now, my gut is like, all right, well, if Nate Davis has played right guard his entire NFL career, and he said the only time he went to left was back in college, I would probably try to keep him there and see if Tevin can move over to the left. And if it doesn't work out, then you can bring him back and see it the other way. But I think that interior combo, when the Bears walk out on that practice field in OTAs, my gut is that your two guards are going to be Nate Davis, Tevin Jenkins, with Cody Whitehair at center.
Yeah, that's kind of the indication I'm getting, just based off of what, like you said, Nate Davis has only played right guard in the NFL. I tried going back to where he played at college at Charlotte, and for the first, I think for 3 of those 4 seasons, it says right guard. So I know he said he played a little bit on the left side. I'm just wondering exactly when that last time was, because this guy has primarily been playing on the as a right guard when he's been playing on the offensive line. And then for Cody Whitehair, the last time he was a center was week 10 during the 2020 season, and that was against the Minnesota Vikings. After that, he switched over to the guard position. So fluctuation again on the offensive line, but it goes back to what Ryan Poles said. He's probably going to just look to get the best 5 out there. And if that means going into training camp, having some guys hash it out, see what works best, that's ultimately what it's going to look like. But Nate Davis, I just watching, some tape of him. I like his movement skills, and that's a big thing with the Bears because we also learned, like Orlando Brown a little bit, why the Bears maybe didn't pursue that. It's like the scheme matters. And if being at Orlando Brown's 6'8", 340, 350, it's a little harder to move and get to the second level when you're that big. But Nate Davis definitely has those skills to get to the second level, get to the linebackers, and be an asset to this wide zone scheme.
Yeah, I don't want to lose my thought on that topic, so I'm going to bring it up now. We'll get to the super chat in a second. But I got a lot of this on Twitter today too, and it's a fair point. It's a fair question because we sit here and we sort of criticize the last coaching staff for not being able to adapt the scheme to its players. So is it really smart to be so stuck on what your scheme is that you can't bring in a player like Orlando Brown? And I just don't think it's that easy. And I think that specifically, one, they do really like Braxton Jones at left tackle. So are you willing to move him to right? Or is he willing to move to right? I think is the bigger question. But beyond that, I think when it comes to adapting your scheme to your players, in my opinion, that matters more with skill position players. I think the bedrock at the line of scrimmage, those, the foundation of what you're trying to do, especially in your running game, if you're going to come in with these Shanahan principles and run an outside zone scheme, like you can't have offensive linemen that can't really do that at a high level, or pay them like a high level guy. And then they're going to be limited because, in a certain part of your playbook, because that's what you're trying to do. Like, that's just not smart football roster building, in my opinion. So we've already seen the Bears and this coaching staff and Luke Getsy be able to adjust the scheme to their skill position players, most notably Justin Fields. So I don't think it's a stubbornness by any means that we maybe saw in the past. It's just when it comes to roster building, if you're going to pay an offensive lineman that much money, and I realize that Orlando Brown ended up not necessarily getting, $20 million a year, but he's still got a lot of guarantees. It's still got to be a good fit. So I understand where Ryan Poles is coming from that one when he says the scheme match is a big deal there. And instead of going after him and questioning that, I think we should remember he was there when they traded for him. Like, he knows this player. He was in Kansas City with this player. So it's not like there's a guessing here. He knows exactly what that guy can do, his strengths and weaknesses. And again, I think it's another indication, sort of a refreshing indication, that they're not just trying to be the Chiefs. They're trying to build their own thing here.
Yeah, and Adam, real quickly, just along those lines, like when we talk about the offensive line, we talk about it as a unit, a single unit. And so when you're having the unit run the certain scheme that they're running, it's hard to, adjust the scheme to an individual, as opposed to, like you were saying, with skilled players, you could do that. So I think that also kind of factors into ultimately why, Orlando Brown isn't here, because if anybody knew him as well as they could have, it was Ryan Poles. So obviously the Bears didn't go that move. Braxton Jones is the left tackle for now. And, still got to figure out exactly what you're going to do on the right side.
Yeah. All right. D Groovy here, $9.99. Thanks for hanging with us. He says, I was screaming at my phone at Carm yesterday. Poles says he likes a player, so if he does re-sign him in the future, the future relationship is good. If he says, Monty is okay for cheap, and he stays, that's kind of tough. Yeah, again, like, not too worried about what they're saying. Not putting too much on that. I think, not to get into that whole conversation again, but you like a thing, a commodity, for a certain price. It's no different than really anything else in our life. Like we brought up the houses yesterday, which was apparently a problem for DJ Moore moving to Chicago. property taxes. Yikes. I mean, I'm sure that's maybe just rent for now, DJ. We'll get into that a little bit later on as well. All right. Last thing from polls. There's probably a few more things, but Jalen Carter. This was interesting on the timing today because I don't think the Bears had any idea what was going on with Jalen Carter today at the point where Ryan Poles was talking, because it was kind of coming out simultaneously while Poles was talking. But Jalen Carter got his legal situation resolved today. He pled no contest, basically made a deal, no jail time involved. There's a $1,000 fine, probation, and some service time. I think that all goes into it, but there's not going to be anything more. I mean, it's a big development for Jalen Carter. And Ryan Poles, I don't think he was aware of that when that came up today. He was at Georgia's Pro Day yesterday, which obviously did not go well for Jalen Carter. He wasn't able to finish the workouts. He came in 9 pounds heavier than he was at the combine. And basically, Poles had to say, look, we're going to bring him in for a visit. So that'll be one of the Bears' 30 visits at Halas Hall. Jalen Carter will visit the Bears. They'll get a much better chance that day to look at him, to see what's going on, to talk to him, to maybe get more information about him. A lot of times that comes with dinners, and that's the whole point of it. And, he basically said sometime in mid-April, we'll take all the information we have, put it out there on the table, and make a decision. And, I think as much as we've covered this story, and we said it again yesterday, it's really what matters is what's all out by April, by the end of April, when the draft happens, and what the full story is and all the information you can get. Certainly, I wouldn't fault teams right now for taking him completely off the board. Obviously, he's still in consideration for the Bears, or they would not be bringing him in. Is he on the table at number 9? Is he on the table if the Bears trade back again, which I think is a very real possibility? Maybe. But they got to sort through all that, and that's just where things stand right now with Jalen Carter.
Yeah, Adam, I think what's going to be huge is when, they do meet with him again. And what the Bears do, they do have the director of wellness, Carla Suber, and then Mike Wiley Jr., who are part of those meetings in the combine where they were interviewing these prospects, but just getting to know where he's at mentally, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in Jalen Carter's life, and you just want to see that, if he makes this transition to the NFL, that he can just handle things. And so I think those two are going to be, big in that process as well, just kind of seeing how he's reacting to things, how he's answering certain questions. And I think, for Ryan Poles, just trying to get down to, what ended up happening and what's his understanding with just him and as an individual. So I think that's going to be huge for the Bears and what they ultimately think of him moving forward, because we all know what he can do on the football field. Just everything outside of that you have questions about. So the Bears will do their homework and ultimately make that decision, whether it's at 9, if they trade back, who knows? But yeah, it's going to be I think an important part of that process to just get to know Jalen Carter even on a deeper level.
All right, I want to get to some more on Tremaine Edmunds, but first got to tell you about ComEd and the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, which is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future. ComEd offers a wide array of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across their territory. Customers can inquire about how to upgrade outdated lighting to energy and money-saving efficient LED lights. Learn more about network lighting to operate your lights through your mobile device and track your facility's energy usage and more. Incentives have recently increased for indoor, outdoor lighting and networked lighting controls, making these projects even more cost-effective than before. Visit ComEd.com/poweringbiz, B-I-Z, now to start saving money and energy. To start a project, contact ComEd at 1-855-433-2700. For more information, email businessee@comed.com or publicsectoree@comed.com.
And I have to tell everybody about FOCO. Chicago, you've already got the best coverage for your favorite team, so get fitted out in the best sports gear around. FOCO's got you covered from Soldier Field to the front room, north or south side, with hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. Get decked out like tomorrow with apparel from the leader in sports merch and collectibles, FOCO. Looking for the perfect gift for the football fan, baseball fan, basketball fan in your life. FOCO's got you covered with hoodies to fight that Lake Michigan breeze. Check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO for 10% off.
All right. First thing with Tremaine Edmunds we got to talk about.
His suit?
The suit was great.
Suit was great.
Not everybody was dressed up today. But not that they need to be. But he came in with a nice, sort of like Virginia Tech colors too. That maroon. That was a nice touch, but really nothing was better than him dropping a brick by brick reference at the end.
I was in the back there, maybe like 2 seats behind you, Adam. Brick by brick, immediately smiled. I was about to tweet it out, and then we quickly spoke brick by brick, and you're like, I'm tweeting it. I'm like, all right, good, because that's like it's like a trigger now. If I hear that anywhere, I immediately think of Greg Braggs.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate that's what happens. But, brick by brick, Ryan Poles is on board. Tremaine Edmunds is on board. I mean, really, if we had done better research, and there it is, the beautiful brick by brick shirt, which you can get right now at CHGOlocker.com. And if you're a diehard, you get access to that hoodie, which I already have put in my request for one and ordered it. And hopefully it's on the way. Get those orders in now at CHGOlocker.com. Brick by brick, we're going to have to get Tremaine Edmunds one, I guess. Look, he if we'd done better research, we would have seen that mic'd up video of his with the Bills where he said brick by brick, and then we would have known that he would have been a target of the Chicago Bears, which I want to get to in a second, because it took about 30 seconds of this guy talking today to realize what a perfect fit he is with the Bears and Matt Eberflus. I asked him this question: what's the number one part of your game that you take pride in? And this is what he said: effort, because that's something you can't teach. We talk about talent. All of the guys are talented in the league. But when you talk about effort, you talk about relentlessness, and you talk about guys that just care. You know what I mean? Guys that finish plays, guys that give it their all. I think when you turn the film on, you can tell that from guys. Are Tremaine Edmunds and Matt Eberflus the same person? That's the question I have. Because that's a quote straight from Flus at the combine. You turn on the film and you can see that. You just feel how much they love football because of how they play. You see it right there on film. You don't even need to talk to them. It's like, this guy is a hits guy without a doubt. So this is where I'm mad at myself, Nick, because we 100% had a show during the season. We were talking about Tremaine Edmunds, and I was talking about how much I love the guy and how good he would look in a Bears uniform. I've watched Tremaine Edmunds, since he was coming out of college. I'm a big fan. He is a perfect fit for the Mike linebacker position in this defense with his size, ability to cover. And the reality is, you go to the combine, you go to these places, you talk to a lot of people, and you get sort of an idea of who the Bears might be targeting, who they might not be targeting. And we didn't hear a lot about Tremaine Edmunds, to be honest, until really the signing happened. So I'm just mad at myself that I didn't just stay on the Tremaine Edmunds train just from my own instincts and film watch and be like, whatever. I don't care that I'm not hearing this guy's name with the Bears. He's a great fit for what they're trying to do. Because now in hindsight, it seems so dumb. It's like, yes, this is your Mike linebacker. He's just, he might be Brian Urlacher light, but it's that guy. And I know people are getting caught up in, what about the will? And how are you going to justify paying the Mike? It's like, well, what about when this defense was good, when this scheme was good in Chicago? Who made more money? Urlacher or Briggs? Yeah. I mean, they both ended up doing pretty well for themselves, but Urlacher was the guy. He was the guy in the middle. And so I think it makes perfect sense sort of in hindsight. You look at it, you're like, oh, like this is a hits guy. It's like could not have been a better fit. And you understand why Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham and probably Matt Eberflus too were like banging the table. Like, let's get this guy to Chicago.
Yeah, Adam too. Like we were in Indy. Yeah, obviously the combine was going on. You know, had I just looked up 2018 draft profile, Tremaine Edmunds would have popped up. His comparison is Brian Urlacher. It's like, oh, okay. Who did Eberflus have in Indianapolis? Shaq Leonard, a tall guy in the middle of the defense who could drop back in coverage. It's like the breadcrumbs are there. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like it makes so much sense. And just what he can do in the middle of this defense, the hits principles are there. And you know what I really enjoyed from him too? He's a big family guy. Like his family was off to the side as he was giving his press conference. And, you know, he said, it's not all about like the dollars, right, that you make out of being a free agent, the money you can get. It's the relationships that you ultimately make too. And that's big to him. I think that just speaks to the person that he is and why he's going to be such a great fit in the Bears locker room. He doesn't come across as a meek type of guy. He's like a team person, right? So I think just when you think about what he can do, who he is as a person, how he presents himself, what he values, yeah, that fits what this current Chicago Bears team is trying to create. Just a well-rounded locker room with a bunch of good guys. And now you're adding some talent, which is actually good to see.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty set at linebacker right now. Another quote from Edmonds on why he wanted to come to the Bears. He said, it's more than just money because relationships go way further than any piece of paper could give you. Now, I'm going to stop right there. I'm pretty sure the Bears offered him the most money, and typically that's the number one factor. But no, I do agree, and I know I think I was talking to Herb Howard a little bit today, and I saw him tweet something about this too, just like how impressive. Like Jermaine Edmonds came off right away as a instant leader for this defense. That's somebody who's going to fit right in with the guys that are already here. And you know, I think people were like wondering what those cryptic tweets were from some of the existing players on defense the other night. I don't know if that ever got confirmed or not, but I think it was just excitement about a guy like Tremaine Edmonds joining. And I think he really is going to be a great fit for and worth, you know, who knows if he's worth every penny that they paid him. Yeah, I do think there's a couple things he can do better. I think, you know, if we're going to make Brian Urlacher comparisons just because of the size, and I get it, but the reality is, like, if there is a weakness in Tremaine Edmonds' game that's much different than Urlacher, to me, it's playing downhill and sort of sometimes getting washed up in traffic. And certainly when he's in coverage, he's one of the best coverage linebackers out there. And I think that, you know, you talk to people in Buffalo and they want to see him make more plays on the ball too. So yeah, that part of it is real. So I don't know if he's going to live up to all the money in the contract, but do keep in mind the way it's structured that there's a relatively easy out after 2 years, which lines up with when they're going to have to pay Justin Fields. But my gut right now is that this is just a guy who's going to be a fit, like worst case scenario, in a way that Danny Trevathan was a fit for what the Bears were trying to do then. And he ended up getting a second contract with the Bears as well after being here for a while. Now, I think they kind of regretted that second one, but again, I'm saying that's like worst case scenario in my opinion.
Yeah, and you know, I have to be reminded every now and then that he's only 24 years old. That did not seem like a 24-year-old up there in front of the media, just honestly just blowing, you know, his press conference out of the water there, because again, like, he's such a young player. There's so much more to his game that I think he can learn about himself, and, you know, with Eberflus and Alan Williams, and hopefully getting their guy in this system. Like, yeah, I think if Bears fans want to have high expectations for him, you can look at the contract to orient you that way. But he does fit. He fits what the Bears are looking for at the Mike linebacker, and he's still very young. So there's a lot of potential left in Tremaine Edmonds and where he can take his game to the next level.
All right. Now, the other linebacker, TJ Edwards, who I expect to be the will linebacker. I think the Bears think he can make that transition over there. He last season primarily was the middle linebacker for the Eagles, but he does have experience kind of moving around, and I think that they view it as like putting him next to Tremaine Edmunds. It's going to be a good fit. He's very good with instincts. Might not be the fastest 40-time guy in the world, which is part of the reason why he fell out of the draft and went undrafted. But I think that certainly with the instincts of really both TJ Edwards and Jack Sanborn on either side of Tremaine Edmonds, it's got the potential. Again, if they can find a way to keep and we'll get to the D-line here probably in our next segment, if they can find a way to get that upgrade, that big multiplier that they need on the defensive line, these guys have an opportunity to go out there and make some big plays on the ball. I wanted to ask TJ Edwards about his connection with Ian Cunningham because I had a hunch that might be something that made this thing come together. Remember Ian Cunningham, the Bears assistant general manager, came over from Philadelphia and was there when they drafted TJ Edwards. And TJ basically said, yeah, he's one of the first guys that I got to know when the Eagles signed me. And being an undrafted guy who wasn't playing a lot, Ian Cunningham would always be one of those guys who was like pumping him up and saying, I could see it in you, keep working hard. It's going to happen. And eventually it did. So obviously if Ian Cunningham saw that in TJ Edwards 4 years ago, he's a fan of us now because he's gotten to the point where he just kept fending off every competition he possibly could on the Eagles roster, a Super Bowl roster, by the way, and became a very good starter for them. So I think that connection had a lot to do with why the Bears targeted TJ Edwards. And it's going to be interesting to see him join this linebacking crew and make that transition to the weak side.
Yeah, and one of the things that he talked about, obviously being paired up with Tremaine Edmonds is, it's going to have to be a relationship, right? And he said he already met him in the building, but for those two guys to work in tandem together, and if TJ Edwards playing in a different position, playing the Will instead of the Mike, it's gonna go back to those relationships, and we know Tremaine Edmonds is big on them. And for Edwards to also be successful in this scheme, you have to trust the guy next to you. But like you said, it's going to help if they can get some more guys up front to keep them clean, because both at Buffalo and Philadelphia, they had some defensive linemen that, can occupy they can keep the linebackers clean to allow them to play instinctively, downhill, fast. And so that's what I think that obviously that'll be, hopefully something else that Poles looks to address. But yeah, I think it has a lot of potential, Adam, and we have to see it out there once, we finally get, some games out here later in the year. But you think of the speed, the instincts, these two guys coming from winning teams. It's a lot to like at the linebacker position for the Bears. And that was also a big thing I noticed too. Like, I know everyone always talks about the Bears tradition, they bring up the linebackers, but Edmonds brought it up. DeMarcus Walker brought up like the Bears tradition. Obviously TJ Edwards was a Bears fan growing up, but they brought back the legacy of the Bears, which is always being known for defense. Do you think that's a little bit blown out of proportion, or is that actually resonate with free agents? Because it seems like the guys that came here, and unless they're just saying the right things to say the right things, but it seems like that still holds a little weight.
I think it's more of a talking point that comes up
every
time a linebacker signs here. It's always the same thing. I don't really get too caught up in that. I think it's something that, like, when you hear Edmonds talking about walking around Halas Hall and seeing that stuff, like, yeah, maybe it resonates then, but I don't know how much I'm buying that actually has something to do with, coming to Chicago. Yoshino, $5 super chat, became a diehard today. Super excited for the season. Is it possible that they will move Edwards, Edmonds, and Sanborn around to play at every spot? Good question. Appreciate you for coming to diehard today. Hopefully you get your free shirt too. Make sure everybody who signs up to be a CHGO diehard gets a shirt. And if you're interested in doing so, if you're not already, you go to allchgo.com/diehard, and diehards also get my newsletter every week as well. In terms of that question, yeah, look, I don't know that anybody's locked into any one position. I do think that, as I said earlier with the offensive line, I think when they take the field for OTAs, Tremaine Edmonds will be your Mike. I think TJ Edwards will be your weak side linebacker, and I think Jack Sanborn's your Sam. But I think Jack Sanborn can play all those positions. I think TJ Edwards can play all those positions. And I actually think that Tremaine Edmunds' skill set could translate to the weak side if necessary. But that's probably something that happens more out of necessity with injuries than anything else if it gets down to that point. But it's certainly not a bad thing to have guys that can play all over. And Eberflus has stated in the past that ideally his starting strong side linebacker in their system, they want that guy to also be the primary backup to both the Mike and the Will. So I think they have that. I think that they've built that now with these 3 linebackers. And it'll be fun to watch it play out.
Yeah, definitely will. And it's good to have, look, as much as we'd like to see probably Jack Sanborn play significant in a lot of snaps next season, it's good to have a guy like him who's not going to be on the defense as much just because the Bears are going to be a lot of nickel. That's just how it is in the NFL. But you have a capable guy, even though it was not the largest sample size. He showed you what he can do on the football field. So if anything does happen to Edwards or Edmonds, you do have a Jack Sanborn that showed you he can play in this defense and has the instincts to do a pretty good job.
All right, got a bunch of other guys to talk about too that we were introduced to today, including on the defensive line. But first, with Carm not here, I'm gonna have to jump in and do this Roman ad. And
you're already smiling.
So it says here to talk about how guys want a better sex life, like Mark Carman. And 50% of men have symptoms that get in the way of wanting or enjoying sex. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about anybody in specific at this point because I want to be fair, to the people that aren't here today. But if you want a better sex life, you're not alone. Roman is here to help. Roman is the digital health clinic for men, addressing a variety of sexual health needs and offering genuine medication that helps achieve and maintain a strong erection. That's right. Roman offers discreet wipes that help you last 4 times longer in bed as well. And, if you have low T, getting testosterone levels back to normal can help increase your libido. Roman offers a testosterone test, which includes lab processing. And if it's appropriate for you, treatment for low testosterone, which is a real thing and something to keep in mind. No waiting rooms, no hassle. Straightforward digital experience from the comfort of home. And if medication or testing is appropriate, Roman will send it directly right to your door. Everything arrives in a discreet package with free 2-day shipping. To learn more about how you can achieve your personal sexual health goals, go to ro.co/CHGO to get 20% off your entire first order. That's ro.co/CHGO.
I don't have a clever transition to go from Roman to Game Time, but we're just going to do it right here. Yep, Game Time is the hottest ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. Have you ever dreamed of sitting in a seat you never thought you could? 50-yard line, courtside, behind home plate, floor seats at a concert. It's possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you thought you could never buy. You won't find a better deal this season on Bulls tickets, Blackhawks tickets, because Game Time is created by the fans, for the fans, and guarantees the lowest price. And if you love CHGO, then you're going to love Game Time. The best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description. Join over 15 million people who have downloaded the Game Time app and score the best seats to all your favorite events.
All right. I believe, as I'm trying to pull up the NFL transaction wire here, the Bears have released Trevor Simeon, which is not necessarily a surprise. And I will tell you right now, because they signed PJ Walker last night, Trevor Simeon, the Bears' backup quarterback last year, is being released. And I would tell our friends at DNVR to keep an eye on that one. Possible return to Denver because I know Trevor Simeon really likes it there, and also he was with Sean Payton in New Orleans as well. So possible connection there as the Bears move on from Trevor Simeon. All right, couple other guys that we got to talk about before we get out of here, and we'll get some super chats as well. But actually, the next one was PJ Walker. So we'll start right there with that quarterback news. PJ Walker, I think, is, and if you heard him talk about this a little bit today too, just how he thinks like that he can come in and the offense doesn't necessarily have to change a whole lot. You know, I think about Baltimore and Huntley coming in for Lamar Jackson, and the Bears saw that firsthand last year when the Ravens came to Soldier Field and Lamar Jackson was out and they still couldn't win the game. It's not like Huntley was spectacular, but he just comes in, he's able to run things. You don't have to change the playbook too much. And I do think that PJ Walker, who, is not nearly as tall, size-wise, though, he's still built pretty solid. And he's got a cannon. Go look up that highlight to DJ Moore from last year, where he launched the ball, as he said today, it was in the air for 67 yards. I mean, that's a ridiculous throw. He's got that experience with DJ Moore. I think there's a comfort level there. DJ mentioned today that, that even just from a life standpoint, it helps having somebody here, a friend that's familiar, that's making this transition too. So I really like that signing. I think it's a better situation for the Bears and where their offense shifted to in the middle of the season, and probably what they're going to continue to do. So I'm a big fan of that signing, and I'm not surprised to see the Bears move on from Trevor Simeon.
Yeah, I've always been a PJ Walker fan, even when he was on the Houston Roughnecks, I believe. I remember just watching that right when that league started up. I'm like, oh man, this guy's lining up out here. But he does still play an important role as the backup quarterback. He said at that position, you still have to be a leader, right? And he kind of learned that when he was in Indianapolis, and just kind of learning from the people ahead of him. But it's nice that he knows what DJ Moore, brings in an offense, and, had some time to connect with him over there in Carolina. And, you can relay that information to Justin Fields and just be an asset to him in any way that you can. And that's just running the scout team against, the number one defense. And I think having a guy like him with that similar skill set, that does help you ultimately in an offense. And, not that Trevor Simeon, he's not the athlete, right? That, obviously Justin Fields is, or even PJ Walker. So it's a move that makes a lot of sense. My question is now, with two quarterbacks on the roster and Justin Fields that throughout, so far in his NFL career hasn't been able to stay on the field exactly an entire season. I wonder if another quarterback potentially in the draft is a potential option for the Bears, just knowing, you never know what's going to happen in a season, but it makes sense to bring a guy like PJ Walker in and what he can add to this Bears team.
Yeah. And I it's just like another one of those moves, Nick, that's like, yeah, this makes sense.
Yep.
Just makes sense. It's just one of these roster building moves that I have to say Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham have been making a lot of, things that we, not that it has to be stuff that we bring up on the show, but it's just like when we have these conversations, because we're obviously doing 5 shows a week, there's a lot to talk about. And we're like, having a backup quarterback like PJ Walker was something that, I don't know if we never mentioned his name specifically, but we've definitely talked about that idea. And because, and hopefully, right, hopefully, no offense to PJ Walker, we don't see him take a snap in 2023. That's the goal, unless it's some cool trick play where Justin Fields is still on the field. That would be sweet. But, you still have to prepare for it. You have to have a decent backup. And he's not perfect from a throwing standpoint by any means. He seems to know his role. And I think I got the sense from him talking today, he knew he was going to be out in Carolina. And so this is a good fit, especially with DJ Moore coming over too.
Yeah, and I liked what he said about DJ Moore. He was asked about how DJ Moore, is able to separate from defenders, and he kind of went into talking about how DJ Moore is just football intellect. He's like, when we were in the huddle, sometimes he was breaking the huddle before the play was even, they even finished like saying the play because of, just how smart DJ Moore is and knowing what he sees on a field. And again, just giving some more insight on the number one wide receiver now for this Bears offense. You're not only getting a guy that's tough, can create these explosive plays down the field, just a smart guy in general too. Is going to know, where the defenders are at, how he can protect himself over the middle of the field. But PJ Walker kind of giving us a little insight of what it's like playing with him, getting a smart, explosive player that's definitely going to be, like I said earlier, like an asset to Justin Fields in the passing game. So it was nice to hear that from him and just getting, a close hand perspective of who this number one wide receiver really is. Because DJ Moore, Adam, not much to say, right? I mean, he was a little short-winded or, just didn't have much to say. But I think if we talk to the players around him, we might get a little bit more out of him.
And as far as Simeon goes, I had a feeling that he'd probably be let go. I wasn't sure, though, because, the Bears did keep Nathan Peterman on this roster last year. It's not surprising at all to see teams keep 3 quarterbacks. I do think Simeon's good in that room. But you start to look at the money and you realize that they clear $1.96 million in cap space. It's hard to justify keeping a guy as your third string quarterback when you can clear up that much cap space. Not that the Bears are in a position where they need to do that, but again, it's just smart football business. Sometimes you got to make those decisions, and I guess you could always re-sign Nathan Peterman if you really want to have that third guy again. Stuff that's always an option, and maybe we'll still see the Bears have 3 quarterbacks. All right. Another defensive line signing, we mentioned it earlier, but Andrew Billings was signed. Some decent money for a guy that has been, around and sort of bounced around and been on some practice squads as of late. Trying to pull up that contract right now. But it was like $3 million. If I'm, at least that's what was reported. A 1-year, $3.5 million contract with $2.4 million guaranteed. That's at least what Ian Rappaport reported earlier today. So to me, that reads as depth guy. No, I don't want to even say depth, like rotational. Somebody who's at least in the defensive line rotation. Now, a little bit about Billings. 28 years old, been in the league 6 years. Again, like I said, he's bounced around a little bit. He's been on some practice squads as of late, but had a decent year with the Raiders. You go pull up his stats, you're not going to see a lot of QB hits, sacks, or anything. I think he only had 1 sack last year, but we're talking about a 1 technique here, okay? So we're talking about that guy that's lined up shaded over the center, and he's a pretty good player against the run. So this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, trying to keep guys off those linebackers that the Bears have now. Somebody who could do that as a rotational piece. I think this is a solid signing. Certainly nothing that you're going to be bragging about too much or saying changes the course of the season, but these are the types of guys you have to have, types of guys that don't prevent you from doing anything else. If you have, you can still draft a defensive tackle in the first round. You could draft defensive tackle in the first and second round. But it's just another guy to have in the fold that, if you're wondering how, because literally you look at the depth chart, and I keep one in front of me at all times on a spreadsheet. Until you filled in Andrew Billings at the 1 technique, there's nobody there. There's, like Andrew Brown still on the roster. He can kind of play both spots, but
bear or not a bear, like there's some bear or not a bear, like potential candidates just in the D line room. Jerry Green, Jerry Green. I couldn't even tell you. Bear
there you go.
Bear. Jalen Holmes, Donovan Jeter. Oh man, wow. Okay, so these aren't even new to me.
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense. They need to add some players to that position, to that group.
Yeah, but when you follow the money and you realize Andrew Billings is coming in with the potential to earn $3.5 million, he's going to be in the mix. He's definitely going to be in the mix. Former 4th-round pick out of Baylor. All right, and then there's DeMarcus Walker, who we mentioned earlier for his awesome comment on Justin Fields, but really, not knowing the guy, obviously, or even talking to him until today, you got the sense that sometimes guys are just late bloomers. Sometimes guys go through tough transitions to the NFL or don't necessarily know what it takes to be a pro. He talked about all those things today. He talked about being a second-round pick, getting drafted by the Broncos, all the different players that they had there. He named them all off. He was naming all these guys and how it was just sort of tough for him to, I think, assimilate to the NFL. He talked about that he had to learn about being a pro. And honestly, a lot of that didn't sound like it happened until last year when he was with Tennessee. He mentioned the guys that were in Tennessee. He brought up Jeffrey Simmons' name. So this is a situation where I still think you got to keep expectations in check. But it was another guy who kind of came off impressive, certainly entertaining. If you didn't get a chance to watch his presser, maybe go back and find it. It's on, the Bears social media accounts. You can watch it. But I just liked his attitude and willingness to kind of explain how kind of tough it's been to get to this point. And because that gave me a little bit of optimism that, okay, yes, he's getting paid and he's getting a decent contract here with the Bears, but you see the work he's been putting in. It's all over social media at D-Line Vids. If you want to check it out, the work he's been putting in this offseason, that it could translate. And him, again, no one's claiming that this guy's going to be a Pro Bowler with the Bears or anything, but another solid addition to the defensive line.
Yeah, if there's any one of these players that seems like they have a chip on their shoulder, it's DeMarcus Walker, how he was able, just kind of talking and answering these questions. He said he's the hardest worker. No one's going to outwork him. But you were mentioning all the players, Von Miller, Shane Ray, Shaq Barrett, Derek Wolfe, Adam Gostis, D'Amato Pico. He named them all. And I think for me, man, this guy has really good recollection and is obviously just really detailed. That's how I kind of thought about it. But also he gave that nugget about Justin Fields saying oh, he was telling me a little bit about myself, just kind of shows the player that Justin Fields is. But yeah, this is a guy that is the only currently right now, or now the second, now we have two defensive line signings, but he's the big, I don't want to say big ticket, but he's got the more money invested in him. And this is coming off of what last year was a career year. I'm going to keep expectations low only because of what happened last season, kind of with Al-Qadim Muhammad, who was coming off his career year in Indianapolis, was a complete dud. I'm not saying that's going to be the case here with DeMarcus Walker, but they want to see what he can do with more playing time because he was 5th on the Titans last season in defensive snaps. So maybe more opportunities is exactly what he needs to showcase, everything that he's been working on in those videos you see on social media. But he's very animated. I think he's very himself too. So I like that about him, and we'll see how he, ultimately does in this Bears defense. And, I think some more snaps, we're going to see a little bit more of what he can do on the football field.
All right. Then the last guy we got to talk about, then we'll get to remaining super chats. But our guy, when I say our guy, my guy, Travis Homer, because he's the special teams guy. And you know what I liked about Travis Homer is he immediately just he could tell he just embraces his role. What do you do well as a running back? I pass protect. I think I'm one of the best pass protectors in the league. Okay, that's awesome. So, but it also says, that's part of certainly what went into Ryan Poles targeting him. And Poles said that he's just sort of had a thing for Travis Homer since he was in college. And he showed some of that against the Bears in preseason last year too. So I like this quote he had to say about embracing special teams. He said, "I'm not sure why anyone would be reluctant to it. It's one of the funnest things in football. Just go out there and get to be free, get to be yourself on special teams." So I love it. And Homer was a 4-phase special teamer with the Seahawks. He was a personal protector, which right now is DeAndre Houston Carson's role, but he can be used all over. He was used all over on kickoff return. He played all 3 lines on kickoff return and was moved around on punt return, he said. So it's just, a good, solid look. I think you saw it this year that if you want your backup running backs to be able to pass protect, and when they can't, it becomes a liability. And so I think that from that standpoint, you can see why they went out and did that, especially because if Khalil Herbert's going to be the number one guy, he needs to still get better in that area. So, Homer might end up being the third down back, and he could do that if he's also, one of your better special teamers on the field at the same time. It's a solid addition.
Yeah, Travis Homer, he was asked, do you anticipate a bigger role in Chicago than you had in Seattle? I'm ready to be whatever they need me to be. To be honest, if that's a bigger role, then I'll accept it. And if it's a very minute role, it's going to be what it is. I'm going to give it my all, whatever. Like, it's just whatever. Not in a bad way, but like whatever the team is asking of him, Travis Homer seems open to it. And it looks like there might be we were talking about like jersey controversy and what numbers. Looks like he's wearing number on the Bears roster 25. Treston Ebner has 25. We know 57 Sanborn, and yeah, we have some roster or some jersey controversy going on here. But yeah, he seems like a guy that, again, whatever's asked of him, he's going to be willing and hopefully able to do it.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any super chats left before we get out of here? I think we have a few.
Yes, we do.
Sanborn.
Oh, the Sanborn jerseys hanging.
Yeah, you guys were talking about him. I thought, I should probably bring that in there. Well, this is from Isaac. He says, $5. Thanks, Isaac. He says, hey, have you noticed that the guys Poles and company bring in seem to be the quiet leader through action kind of types? That's what I saw in the press conference. Do you agree?
I actually do agree with that. Yeah, I think it's a good point, Isaac. I think, and that's how somebody explained Jermaine Edmonds to me a couple days ago too, is that he's just sort of, he's not always going to give you much, but he's just in terms of talking, but he's always professional. And I guess he's kind of grown into being a more vocal leader. Mm-hmm. But it's more about just leading with how you play out there. And I think there's some truth to that.
DJ Moore fits that to a T. Like, I think, his actions will speak way louder than whatever he says. But that, again, that's a good thing. That's ultimately what you want.
All right. This is the question that we always like getting from Christopher Elder, $9.99. Thank you, Chris. Do you guys think pick number 9 should be used on O-line and D-line in the second?
I think I agree with that. I think there's more depth at the defensive line right now. And if it's an edge rusher, if they're looking at 3 I think in the second round, but look, if Skoronski's the guy at 9, Paris Johnson's the guy at 9, I wouldn't be opposed to that. So, I think that would be right now the route I would take.
I think right now that's the most likely outcome. Yes.
All right, there we go. And this is a follow-up from Mark Gauthier, $4.99. He was talking about the Sanborn jersey. He said, it's a keeper. I have the original Jaguars Pro helmet, which they were forced to change by the British car company. And then he said, where was Velus last night?
He's in Paris. Velus Jones Jr. is in Paris. I don't know why I was creeping on his Instagram, but he's in Paris right now. So
why was that question even asked?
Was there a post maybe or something?
Oh, yeah, because they're out the Bulls game. Oh,
right.
DJ Moore.
I see.
I don't know why I connected that. Yeah.
But
Velus is in Paris doing his thing.
Appreciate it, Mark. That sounds cool. The original Jaguars.
Yeah. I don't even remember what that logo was. RM says Velus was at bingo. Maybe. Get it? Because he's old.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. With Carm.
Ooh.
How about that?
Senior night at Denny's. All right, we just got all of them. Okay.
Be nice.
Yeah, be nice. We love Velus.
I'm jealous he's in Paris. That's awesome. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up today's show. Appreciate everybody being here.
No Mark to derail the show.
Right? Just we can do a nice, clean, easy getaway where I can get all my plugs in here. Follow us on Twitter at CHGO_sports, which you should be today because we have a Merch Madness tournament going on. And I have beef with the committee. I'd like to, fight somebody in the committee because they put me up against Big Dave in the first round. Just seems like a tough first round matchup. That just seems like, just disrespected by the committee. It's fine. It's fun though. Check it out. Tim Sinclair voiced all of our names and what we're wearing. It was just a cool thing. It's just a cool thing. So it was really well done by our social media team and everybody that was involved. Jake Flanagan, Kevin Kadek. So check it out. We're having fun with it as March Madness started today. And Jason, I say that last super chat, $2. Edmonds wasn't the best linebacker available. Smith was.
Roquan Schmoquan. It's old news.
Yeah, I think you got to move on at this point. Obviously, the Bears did not feel like he was worth $28 million extra dollars and didn't think he was the right fit. And again, I look back to just the importance of the Mike linebacker in this defense, and obviously they feel like Edmonds can do it. What do you got there,
Adam? You're winning. You're winning right now. You're doing well against Big Dave. It's a tough competition, but I voted for you. I like that hoodie, so I like them both. Yeah. We like everything we have here at CHGO. So
technically, you're supposed to be voting for the merch, right? Not the person, I think.
Honestly,
Big Dave would kill me if it was about the person.
What?
I believe
in a vote.
I like the hoodie. Yeah. I like the hoodie. That's
I
one I
vote
actually don't have
Dave
yet.
over me. Yeah,
it's sort of a choose your own adventure. Are you voting for the person or the merch? Either way.
I mean, otherwise I would have voted for Big Dave. But I do like that hoodie, so I was glad I was wearing it that day that we recorded that. All right. Make sure if you would like all that merch, you get a discount if you are a CHGO diehard. allchgo.com/diehard to go sign up. You get access to the Brick by Brick hoodie as well. If you are a diehard, and you can get a free shirt when you sign up, and that Brick by Brick shirt is available to everyone. We are out of here. Back tomorrow. Will and Nick will have you covered on our Friday Chicago Audible edition. We're back at noon tomorrow, so set those notifications. Be ready for that. I will talk to everyone next week. I'm not going to give anything away right now, but we have some special things lined up for next week. So a little teaser there to get excited about, and we'll explain all that later. Enjoy your evening, and Will and Nick, we'll talk to you tomorrow.